So by exceedingly popular request, bordering on cyberbullying, we are going to break down the John Frusciante solo song Murderers, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the minimalist approach that separates solo Frusciante from the produced approach that separates Chili Peppers Frusciante, and kind of talk about the arrangement of the song, right? So if you haven't heard the song, which I hadn't until I was requested to do this, the main line sounds like this. So it's really kind of like a very dry signal that we're going with, and it seems like a simple kind of like little line within a solo, but we're going to talk a little bit about the chords that come with it, and just kind of how it's all put together, right? So before we actually get into this part, I want to talk about the next part, which is something like, I'm not going to play this exactly right, but it kind of goes through these chords like... And to me, that's more of like, it reveals kind of like the character of the song, the chords behind it. I'm a big proponent of seeing the chords behind a song to help you understand like the riffs and everything of that first, right? So right here, we have just kind of one shape and three spots, or two shapes and three spots. So the first one is the 5th fret on the A string and the 7th fret on the B string. Now right away, this kind of cues you in that it's part of a major chord, right? A D major chord right here. And we've kind of talked about this before in like the... This is kind of in the Scar Tissue one previously. And this is kind of like a calling card of Frusciante's, how he kind of takes pieces of chords, right? So what he's doing, he's taking the outside pieces of this D major chord into the E major chord, right? Into F sharp minor. Now if you watch the chord building videos, that right there tells us what key we're in, right? Because every key has 3 major chords on the 1, the 4, and the 5. So when you see 2 chords, major chords next to each other, you know they're the 4 and the 5 in most cases. Now there are exceptions to that, but most of the time that's true, right? So that means we're in the key of A, where A is 1, D is 2, E is 5, and F sharp is 6, right? So that F sharp is important because we're kind of going to do an F sharp minor scale riff, and that's how we're going to get the... Right? Because behind that track it's very... I'll link you to the actual song because it's worth listening to because it's a really sparse arrangement. The only really thing behind it is like a drum beat and a... just kind of F, like an F sharp note being played over and over again. So that F sharp note sets the tonal center of an F sharp minor thing. So if we start by playing an F sharp minor scale on this F sharp right here, the 11th fret of the G string, we can kind of start to get our scale to work with, like... And we're not going to need all those notes, but we're going to start here with the 11th fret of the G string, to the 9th fret of the B string, to the 10th fret of the B string, to the 12th fret of the B string, and then repeat that same thing on the E string. 9, 10, 12, 9, 10, 12, and we can end on the octave F sharp, right? So our notes are... And now we can see this as part of like a bigger modal shape, like if we wanted to maybe think of like C sharp Phrygian or something like that and kind of build into that. But again, this is an F sharp minor riff. And we're going to start on the B note here. So it's the 12th fret of the B string. And we're just going to kind of play just the notes on that string in the scale. So 12, 9, 10, 10. Then we're going to go down a string. 9, 12, 10. And then back to the B string, 12, 9, 10. So... And then the second time around, it's pretty much the same, slightly different. Okay, so the second time around, the only thing that changes is we go from the 12th fret of the B string to the 9th fret of the E string, back to the B string. Okay, and everything about this line is a very minimal type thing, which is kind of like if you are really just kind of into Chili Peppers Frusciante and you start listening to his solo stuff, especially his older solo stuff, you might be kind of like a little shocked, like this sounds nothing like it because it's such a minimal approach. There's not a lot of production behind it. The tone even is it's a thinner tone without really any reverb, right? So it kind of sounds but it has like a cool kind of vibe to it, and that's just something that differentiates his playing solo from with the Chili Peppers, right? So again, the entire riff is... And there are a lot of different places on the neck you can play that. You can play that in the F sharp minor scale position, like where your index finger's lined up with the 14th fret. Doesn't really matter where you play it, as long as it sounds good enough for you. That's pretty cool, right? But I do want to talk about how adding a little bit of arrangement to this song, you can start to hear Chili Peppers Frusciante. Because I remember when I was first trying to get into solo Frusciante, I initially did not like it, and I kind of fought back because it wasn't what I was used to. But then as I kind of like got better musically, I was able to hear that like the same genius in John Frusciante's playing is prevalent all throughout any type of music he does, even with like the newer kind of like synthier stuff. And just kind of like maybe an example of how we can do that, I'll try to demonstrate here with like a loop pedal, right? So say we were trying to do a more produced version of this kind of Chili Peppers style, we could lay the chords behind it, right? And again, those chords, maybe like the D to the E to the F sharp minor, right? If we maybe kind of made a little bit of a Chili Peppers strumming track behind it, like... on top of that, I'll put like a funkier like F sharp minor thing on top, right? And then all of a sudden you have the riff. So when you kind of add a little bit of a produced element, you can hear that sounds a lot more like what a Chili Pepper song would sound like. So the genius of his playing is always kind of hidden just in different like layers, in my opinion. So I think this is kind of like a good way to kind of look at his solo stuff, to maybe get into it, and just maybe start playing around within just like the relative minor scale, because again, we're in the key of A, but we're not, even though we're not using the key of A, I was just looping like a D, an E, and an F sharp over it. So just play around, get really comfortable with that F sharp minor scale or the relative minor scale in any key, and then just try to figure out some of your favorite songs. And if you want to try to change the arrangement around to kind of make it more your style, that's why I think a looper pedal is a fantastic investment in your playing and practicing. And if you have any more questions, please hit me up in the comments, Instagram, Twitter, the website, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.